New Yorkers head to the polls in the primary election. Why the results of this vote are so crucial. Live from CNN's World Headquarters in Atlanta, I'm Lynda Kinkade. CNN Newsroom starts right now.
No New Yorker can vote for Ted Cruz.
Do we nominate Donald Trump and hand the election to Hillary Clinton?
At the end of the day, I think the Republican Party wants to pick somebody who actually can win in the fall.
I don't think there's been a more important, consequential election in quite some time.
It is an enormously important primary because there are a lot of delegates at stake.
We begin with the primary that could sway the race for the White House. People are lined up at the polls in New York. Hundreds of delegates are at play, and the stakes are high, especially for the Democrats. Hillary Clinton is favoured to win in her adopted state, and that could cement her lead. Her rival Bernie Sanders has been walking the streets, but he paused to criticise primary rules that block independent voters. And Donald Trump was able to cast a vote at his own local polling station. Trump is favoured to win big in New York, and he appears to have some new help in getting there. I'm joined now by Jonathan Swan. He's the national political reporter for The Hill, and he joins us from Washington. Great to have you with us, Jonathan. Now, looking at the Republicans, we've seen a big shake-up in Trump's team. There's been a resignation, there's been 2 new hires, and his campaign manager, Lewandowski, who was accused of manhandling a reporter, has been pushed aside. What should we make of these moves?
So, the thing to know about the Trump campaign, which is only really evident when you spend a lot of time going through his expenditure reports, is that it isn't a real campaign, or at least it hasn't been until the last 2 weeks. He, every time he gets up and speaks, he says, I'm self-funding, it's all me. But really, if you go and look through it, he's spent very little of his own money. He hasn't hired a proper professional staff. He's had almost no investment in data and technology. And he's suddenly realising that he really needs to get a good staff in to help him win the delegates, because it's probably going to come down to a contested convention. So that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a frantic scramble to professionalise.
Just stand by, Jonathan. We also have John Avalon, a political analyst and the editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast. He's joining us live from New York. Great to have you with us as well. John, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has weighed in this morning about the Republican rules. Just take a listen to what he had to say.
If a rule's been unfair for 100 years, let's change it. I mean, the reality is, if the rule is unfair, and it's not just me saying this, you poll Republicans, 6 to 7 out of 10 Republicans say the man or woman with the most votes should be the nominee.
So Rudy Giuliani is, of course, saying that he will vote for Trump, although he hasn't officially endorsed him. He is saying that if Trump is within 20 or 30 of the nomination, 20 or 30 delegates of the nomination, they should give it to him. So, John, can the rules be changed that easily?
No. I mean, the rules have to be changed by process, and this isn't an impressionistic painting. I should say that, for reasons of disclosure, that I was Rudy Giuliani's chief speechwriter in City Hall, and I know him well, and I think very highly of him. I don't share his sentiments about Donald Trump. But the rules are what the rules are. The rules can be changed, but they have to be changed by the Rules Committee. I do think a lot of delegates would find it very unfair if there was effectively an end run, which would seem to be the will of the Republican electorate. But obviously there's an existential angst at the heart of this as well, which is a lot of Republicans feel that Donald Trump would be a disastrous nominee in the fall, not only for the presidency, but for the down ticket impact on the Senate and the House. That may very well be true for Ted Cruz as well, however. This is a problem of their own making, resulting from them shrinking the base of the party and having unrepresentative turnout in the primary votes that have elevated candidates who are electorally challenged when it comes to winning a general election. But the rules are the rules, and you can't wish them away. You've got to proactively change them, and that needs to be done by process, by committee.
That is a fair point. Let's just turn to the Democrats for now. Jonathan, we saw Hillary and former President Bill Clinton vote this morning. No doubt she's hoping for a big win in New York, not only to end Sanders' recent winning streak, but also to cement her status as the frontrunner.
Yeah, and look, she is going to win. she's going to win probably by about 10 points. Most polls have her up by about 13 points. And really everything's counting in her favour in New York. She's not only the home state senator, but the thing that's really hurting Sanders is New York is actually a very, very closed primary system. You have to register with the party back in October in order to vote. So if you only started feeling the burn in January, well, tough. You can't vote for Bernie Sanders. So Bernie's doing this sort of commiseration tour today where he's going and, sharing the angst of various people who love him but can't support him.
He is pretty upset, and he did speak to CNN this morning. I want you just to take a listen to what he had to say about the way the voting system works in New York.
3 million people in the state of New York who are independents have lost their right to vote in the Democratic or Republican primary. That's wrong. You're paying for this election. It's administered by the state. You have a right to vote. And that's a very unfortunate thing, which I hope will change in the future.
So to John Avalon, he talks about 3 million votes. That's about 27% of New York voters. Should that rule be changed going forward?
Going forward, I actually agree with Bernie Sanders on this one. That rule should be changed. Look, in general, the rules for American elections should be err on the side of openness, transparency, and accountability. And closed partisan primaries, which are conducted on the taxpayer dime but are inherently exclusionary to voters like me who are independent, I think don't meet basic standards of openness, transparency, and accountability. If you want representative turnout, you need to encourage that. You can't set up these onerous obstacles about registering for the party 6 months away, which would require a degree of psychic ability to determine what candidate you might want to support at that time. And I think we need major election reform in this country, and I think that's something that folks on both sides of the aisle are starting to see, and hopefully that commitment and that will continue after the election.
You both make a very good point, and it's very clear that both Sanders and Trump have been continuing to complain about the way the rules work. When it comes to the Republican Party, though, at the convention, some rules can be changed. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I mean, sorry,
Jonathan, you go ahead first.
Well, there's a rules committee, so they need to be voted out of the rules committee. It's 100-odd party regulars, and then it goes to the floor, and it's a majority vote. It's very unlikely there's going to be radical surgery to the 2012 rules. They might change a rule here or there, but the fact is Donald Trump is making a very selective argument. Yes, the Ted Cruz has a much better delegate game, and some of these states don't have voting, which is inherently undemocratic. However, also there are states where he, wins by a very small margin, and then they're winner take all, so he gets 100% of the delegates. So, if it was proportional representation, like it is on the Democratic side, Donald Trump would actually be doing worse than he is now. So it's selective griping.
Right. And just finally to John Avalon, Donald Trump does have the potential to box both Cruz and Kasich out of the New York primary and take most of the delegates. What does he have to do to sweep the state?
Well, he's got to get over 50% in the congressional districts. And look, Donald Trump is a home state figure. I don't know that he'll win his own native district of Manhattan. It'll be interesting to see. But this is a state where he's had a commanding lead after a tough couple of primaries. And it should be said that for all the Cruz team's talk of how the game had changed after Wisconsin, that the upcoming states are those that seem to be more likely to be friendly to Trump than Cruz. They should also be friendly, I should say, to John Kasich, but he's so far having a hard time breaking through in more moderate purple states where he should have an advantage. But Donald Trump, I think, can look forward to a couple of strong weeks ahead, and that will add to his supporters' claims that the system is rigged if he has denied the nomination. But you have to work within the rules. And then I think writ large, we need a larger conversation and action around election reform in this country to open the process.
That's a good point. John Avalon, live for us from New York, and Jonathan Swan in D.C. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Pleasure.